founder of Addicted to Classic Rock, the place to be for everything classic rock music, bands, trivia, and special guests. Join me this week as you know him from That Metal Show. Yes, that's Don Jamieson. We'll get down to talk about everything from the new classic rock era to touring with the Dice Man to living the rock and roll life. Hey guys, this is Jerry Maurer, founder for Addicted to Classic Rock, your favorite fan page for everything classic rock. I am so excited because today we're kicking off our interview series and we have one of the most recognizable, as far as I'm concerned, one of those heavy metal comedy rock comics, okay? Before I bring them out where you can see them right there, I want to share with you a couple of pictures here. Take a look at this. Have you ever seen this guy before? He's the good-looking one there. On the right-hand side, that's Don Jamieson from That Metal Show. And Don, my goodness, guys, welcome, Don. If you guys can please comment and just comment below and welcome Don, of course. Let him know, hey, thank you so much for being here, Don. My goodness, people don't know this, but Don and I actually go back a very long time. So we'll share a little bit about that. We'll share more about your current, your current gig history, where you're going to be performing. But I've often looked at you, Don, as somebody who's also achieved, success. And you can't overcome, a lot. You started from here and you became, this top comic that's out there. So guys, I am so excited to share with you a few minutes with Don Jamieson. Welcome, Don.
Hey, I can't follow that introduction. It's too good, man. But I did put on my best Waffle House hat just for the interview. So I'm all set. And yes, despite trying to ruin my career around every corner, I've yet had some success. So I'm happy to be with you and happy to talk to you. And yeah, we go back a long way, you and your twin brother. So this is cool. I never thought you'd be interviewing me on my iPhone someday.
I know, here we are, exactly, on your iPhone. But you know what? I have to, everybody's probably asking right below there. I can see, is that a guitar right there on the wall behind you?
Yeah, I collect guitars, and that's one. It's a Metal Blade Records guitar that I had specially made, and I do my comedy albums with Metal Blade Records, which is a great heavy metal label. It's been around 35 years, and that was that's one of my connections with the rock world is that as a comic you want to put records out, but I wanted to make sure I did it with the right spin on it. And when these guys offered me a deal, I was like, oh, see, that's what I've been waiting for, that heavy metal connection with my comedy. And I was the first comic signed to a heavy metal label. So it was really exciting.
That is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, like one of those mysteries is how did they find you? Like here you are, living, you're building yourself into a comic, and then all of a sudden, how did that happen? Well,
obviously I go out and I play, the regular comedy clubs and theaters and what have you. But, since I had, after a bunch of years of doing That Metal Show, I started to get the opportunity to go out on the road and open for bands, because my favorite comics were sort of like rock and roll comics also, like Dice and Sam Kinison and Bobcat Goldthwait. And in the 80s, those guys all went out and opened for bands. And it was so cool then. And then for the longest time, it was so not cool. And I was like, wow, maybe I could help bring that back, that cool factor to a comic working with a band. So I went on the road with this band that was on Metal Blade Records. And I opened for him, and the head of the label said, wow, what? I haven't seen that in forever, and I don't know if you have enough time for a whole album, but if you do, I'd like to do a record with you. So we worked out a deal in his car in 5 minutes, and I've done 4 albums with him now, and they're my family. So it's that great crossover thing where I could work a regular comedy club. I could work in front of any crowd. I could do a nursing home. I can do a children's party, and I could play a rock club, so it's pretty nice.
Well, you're a pretty humble guy. I mean, the fact of the matter is you've also toured and you've been around. You've gone international. I know you've traveled abroad as well. So, I know that recently, or I saw a shot. Let me share with people this. This was one of those things that I thought people should see. Hold on, let me get that shot here.
Is this going to be like on Fallon and you're going to find an embarrassing picture of me?
Maybe, but let me just bring this out here. This is one of those cool shots that this tour bus. Yeah, can you explain? Can you share? How did this come about? I mean, rock and roll comedy by Don Jamieson from That Metal Show. I mean, that right there, that's pretty hardcore. I love that. Why don't you show people how that came about?
So that's at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, believe it or not, in Cleveland. So that happens. So Dizzy Reed is the keyboard player on Guns N' Roses, has a side band called Hookers and Blow, as you can see there.
Right.
And I've been out touring with those guys for about the last 5 years. They're sort of an all-star band, members of Quiet Riot and Enough's Enough, and obviously GNR. So we've been going on the road together doing stuff. Just for fun, like we're all friends, and those guys obviously play. They basically do covers like 70s songs like GNR, and they do Bowie and Tom Petty and Elton John and stuff. But it's like it's always just been a big party. So to add me into the mix really made sense for a band like that. This past January we got that bus wrapped by a vodka company, and we toured. Started in Salt Lake City, came all the way down through the middle of the country, up into Massachusetts, and then back down into Chicago. And we had a blast everywhere we went in that bus. We got a lot of attention, as you can imagine.
How many tour dates was that? How many gigs was that?
It was a month of gigs. So whatever we could squeeze into the month. I think we only had 2 days off, so we did a lot of gigs.
Right. Yeah, that's outrageous. I mean, to think that's just an awesome gig. And I sometimes I often just think, since I know you for so long, just knowing that happened and that's possible for people, that if you want to achieve more and you want to be able to live your dream and find your passion, that's really why I started the Addicted to Classic Rock fan page, and we started to branch out and start doing interviews. So maybe Don, just tell people, what was it all roses for you? Trying to find your way.
No, you know what? But what you just said, it hits the nail on the head, man. You have to do things for the passion of them. And my two first, to make it like really easy, it's like my first two records were Kiss Destroyer and George Carlin Occupation Fool. So music and comedy to me have always gone hand in hand, and there's such an element of both of those things in each other. Obviously rock music has so much humor just inherent in it to begin with, hence a movie like Spinal Tap, which is amazing, and there's always a fine line between comedy and reality in that world. But I always liked the solo aspect of being a comic, just working on my own, not having to deal with 4 or 5 other guys. And let me tell you, I've been around a lot of bands in the last 10 years between That Metal Show and touring and stuff. Even if you love everybody in your band, it's like the Real Housewives if you're on a tour bus with people. You're dealing with 5 different personalities, and then this guy's wife doesn't want him to be in the band, and there's this, and my guitar doesn't work, and this broke, and this guy drank too much tonight. So it's always something. So I always like just me as a comic. I can only have to depend on me, right? I don't have to lug any equipment. I don't have to split the money 5 ways. I just put my jokes in my pocket and I go. But I do love the brotherhood of being in a band, like being on that tour bus with those guys. I got that, but without having to actually be in the band. I got the brotherhood of being on the road with guys and touring and doing gigs and getting that satisfaction of sort of being a rock star at the same time as being a comic.
But you had the brotherhood also with That Metal Show for 14 years with Jim Florentine and Eddie Trunk, right? So that was a whole different brotherhood, right?
Right. Well, so 14. It's actually 14 seasons, about 8.5 years.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that's me with two of my best friends talking about rock music on TV and getting paid for it. So God bless America. Yeah, it was it was an incredible experience to do that with my friends, and then to meet over those 14 seasons pretty much every one of my rock idols from my childhood on.
So walk me through, let's say one of your top days as a co-host for That Metal Show, and you were expected to meet one of your idols. Can you walk me through that? Share with people. Everybody's watching this saying, oh my God, I can't believe, first off, it's Don from That Metal Show, because a lot of people do know you. And, walk them through, how was it, how did that become possible, and what emotionally was going through your day?
Well, doing the show with my friends really made it a great experience for me, because, you always have two other people who have your back. And when we did interviews, we all had our own interview style. Mm-hmm. And, it just took a little time to get the chemistry down. But once we did, we pretty much had a well-oiled machine. As far as the artist for me, it was weird, man. I was never... I work behind the scenes in television, as you know, for, there we go, a long time, excuse me. Work behind the scenes in TV for a long time. So I met a lot of famous people for years before that. But I was never sort of starstruck by people, but I also never lost the joy of meeting them and, being interested in their careers and what they're all about. Okay. I think for me, the times were just, like, one of the craziest times was just walking out of my dressing room one day, and the drummer from Black Sabbath, Bill Ward, was standing by himself in the hallway, and he goes, "Oh, hello, Don, how are you?" And I'm just like, how does Bill Ward even know my name? Like, he's never met me before. He's like, "Oh, I'm a big fan of the show." And I'm like, "You're a fan of my show?" Like, that was like insane. So, just stuff like that. Alice Cooper, whenever I see him, even to this day, he picks up the conversation from the last time I saw him. It could be a year ago, could be 2 years ago. And, that it was great to be like accepted by all those guys, right? As somebody in the scene. And, a lot of the guys I made friends with now, even though the show's been off the air a few years, they're all still buds. It's a really tight community, and I feel honored to be a part of it.
So who would you say was your top, your top three guests that you thoroughly, just enjoyed?
Yeah, I mean, Alice Cooper, definitely, because he's the consummate storyteller. He's like, he'll have these amazing stories, and then, at the end, he'll have just this big, like, bomb punchline, man, that'll kill. So he's always great, and he never tells the same story twice, so he's got tons of material. Brian Johnson from AC/DC, definitely.
Really?
He's like, what you see is what you get. The guy with the jeans and the black t-shirt and the cabbie hat on stage, same guy off stage.
Oh, hold on a second. So, hey, you guys watching this, right? Comment below if you love AC/DC. Do that right now and show some love to Don, because he was with Brian. Anybody else with AC/DC when they came?
No, I'm not. No, I never met any of the other guys. But Brian, like Alice Cooper, showed up by himself to the studio. No publicist, no 15 friends, no agents, no anything. Just showed up by himself and didn't need anything, didn't want anything. Alice is like, "No, I'm good. I'm just, I got my book with me. I'll just read until we do the show." And Brian was just wanted to, he was, "Is there a place I could smoke, mate?" So we got him a place outside so he can go have a smoke. And they were just really humble. And these are legendary people. And then I'd say, for a third one, I'd like to pick the ladies from Heart, because,
yeah,
on the rock scene, there's not as many women, as you'd like there to be. Right. It's not as diverse. And, I know their guitar tech was a big fan of the show, and he kind of talked the ladies into doing it. And they even said, they were like, "I don't know about sitting down with these three guys from Jersey. Like, are they gonna fart and burp on us, or like what are they gonna do?" But once we got into a conversation with them and they realized we were like legit fans and we really treated them with respect like we did everybody, they really had a good time, and they talked about us in interviews afterwards. So it was really cool to have them on because they're legends too.
They're legends. These are Hall of Famers.
Yeah, and still going. And that's the thing about all those three people that I just mentioned. They're still performing, and they're still performing at a high level, which, you know, that's the one thing a lot of people don't realize is like all these classic bands, you know, you pick them. A lot of them are still around, and a lot of them are still making new music. Heart's on tour every summer. Cheap Trick's on tour every summer. Def Leppard's on tour every summer. Ted Nugent's on tour every summer. I mean, a lot of the classic bands every summer are out touring, and it's as easy as Googling. You know, what's Heart up to? Siri, where can I see Heart? And I guarantee they'll be playing somewhere near you, and they probably have a new album.
Right. Even Brother Bob, his son loves Rush. He loves Pink Floyd, and they're still, Roger Waters is still playing.
Yeah.
He was just out recently. Bob Seger is still touring, and we just missed him because he was just out. He just did a tour. One of our favorites we missed, he just passed. It was Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Which was a real shame. And I just go back to your comedy, which was, you mentioned George Carlin. And I don't know if you have seen the new Gary Shandling. Judd Apatow did a 2-part, it's like 3 hours altogether on HBO. And Gary got his approval for comedy when he drove to Vegas, or he drove to California, and he gave a stack to George Carlin. And he said, would you, here's some jokes. Let me know if you want to use some of these. He must have been 18 at the time. He drove back home. He comes back he comes back next day. George Carlin had all of the papers around, and he literally looked at Gary and he said, Gary must have been 18, 20 years old. And he goes, if you were looking at comedy as a future, I would go for it.
Wow.
And that was Gary's, that was it. So what was it for you, just to dive back to comedy, that you just knew, you know what, I got to go for it, or, at that time?
Yeah. Well, I had to go for it for me because I was such a big lover of comedy and was always in awe of comics and respected comics so much. So that was just something I had to do for me. As far as any kind of validation, there's 3 things. First one was going out on tour with Andrew Dice Clay for 10 years. For my comedy idol to dig me and what I do and take me on the road and become one of my closest friends in the world, to get that kind of stamp of approval was amazing. The second, go ahead, Jared.
You guys know, right? Andrew Dice Clay. Comment below, because Don's got some cool stuff to share. I got one image I want to share with everybody. But this was, I'm so glad you brought up, Dice. But this has got to be that stamp of approval, right? That me and Donnie are personal friends. He has dealt with the toughest crowds in history, being my opener for years, making him fearless, and now ready to give you his take on what AL's people really are. I love him. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So how did that come about for yourself, and, a good, strong 10-year, bond, that you have with the Dice Man?
Yeah, because I think he liked that I was a fan, but I also, that I'm a legit comic, and when he saw I could handle his crowds, then he had respect for me, and for me it was like I never tried to, to this day, and we still do gigs once in a while together, but in all the years that I worked with him, I never once asked him how much I was making for a gig, so he knew I wasn't just trying to dip my hand to the cookie jar. He knew I was doing it for the love of doing it, and that how much I appreciated playing up in front of big crowds and some legendary venues and all that. So, and then, we'd be on the road together, and he'd confide tons of stuff with me. And look, he always used to say, like, let's get the show over so we can hang out and just talk and like go mess around, maybe go to the mall and mess with people. And like the show almost got in the way, you know. It's like, because we'd have so much fun, like going to the mall and like playing jokes on people and messing around on the plane and all kinds of stuff. So, you know,
you go to the mall. I mean, is obviously Dice is Dice in the mall, or is he, you know, more reserved?
No, he's crazier. You know, there's always some crazy thing going on, and he went through a phase where he was filming everything. So we would like be filming like these little improv sketches, like buying underwear at Macy's, and like there must be hundreds of hours of film of him and I just, you know, going around in the mall and just, you know, going into a store and asking a million questions and being a complete nuisance and, you know, begging for free stuff and just, you know, just having fun, you know. But then people are like, I think that was Andrew Dice Clay. Like they're like, why would he be doing that? That's so silly. But that's the Dice I know. Like everything was about the goof. And, you know, I hate to ruin that image of his, but you know, he definitely has one of the biggest hearts in the business. He really, you know, he gave Jim Florentine and I such a great boost in our career, man, that I could never repay that.
That's awesome. That is tremendous. Yeah, I mean, think about Dyson. You know, he's been in the industry for many, many years. But that's awesome. That's great to see how that, you know, how he just you and him just bonded. You know, that just kind of worked its way out. And what kind of music would you say he was into?
He likes rock music a lot. He likes a lot of the classic bands and all that. But he also likes old R&B and like Elvis and stuff like that. So, you know, he kind of runs the gamut. He also likes some of the new music. He likes some hip hop, but it was and still is the rock and roll comic. You know, it's you know, watching Dice on stage, whether you like him or not, you know, he with the leather jacket and the cigarette and the attitude, you know, that was more of that kind of attitude. You know, that's the rock and roll attitude. Dice was a rock star, not a comic, you know, and that's what I always loved about him. You know, I always loved that performance aspect that was more than just a guy in a suit standing there. Right. You know, this is a guy who, you know, broke the rules and did things differently. And, you know, rock and roll is supposed to be dangerous, right? I mean, that's, you know, your parents aren't supposed to want you to buy the Kiss album or the Rush album or whatever, you know. And it's the same with Dice. And I loved, you know, it was that outlaw style of comedy where, you know, you had to, you know, you couldn't play with your parents in the house because it was too nuts. Right.
Yeah, I definitely, I have a couple of pictures. I would love to get your feedback. This was one right here. This looks dynamite. Looks like a cruise, right?
Yeah, I do this cruise every year. It's the Monsters of Rock cruise, as you can see. And it's basically like, you know, 3,000 or 4,000 rockers and 50 of your favorite bands. And I've actually performed up on that stage a bunch of times for all those people. And it's really intense and really fun. And, you know, I don't know how people go on a regular cruise, man, because it's like there's bands playing from 10 in the morning until 2 a.m. and you just run around and watch bands. And, you know, obviously I'm one of the hosts on it, so I'm introducing bands and I do Q&As with bands and judge, you know, guitar contests and things like that. And it's really kind of the best time in the world.
Nice. Let me see here. This one other shot here.
And that's Eddie Trunk and Jim Florentine next to me. So.
Right.
Yeah, that's on my left is Steve Harris, the bass player from Iron Maiden.
Nice.
Who was on the cruise this year with his solo band. And then on my left is Chuck Garrick, who's been the bass player with Alice Cooper for the last 15 years. And Chuck is a good friend of mine. And yeah, he was on with his side band called Bisto Blanco, and they were on the cruise too. So we did a little, you know, Iron Maiden has a Trooper beer, which is really good. And we threw a Trooper beer party on the boat, and Steve came out and a bunch of people came out, and Eddie and Jim and I hosted it. It was a really fun night. Jim and I did a comedy show on the boat earlier in the evening. So that was a special night for me, man.
Nice. That's awesome. And just thinking about music, and guys, just comment below, let Don know where you're from, and just let us know, what city and state. Also let Don know, because actually I'm going to share with you his website. It's I'll share with you his website now, donjamieson.com. Go figure, right? Pretty simple. www.donjamieson.com. And Don, when we talked last week, I loved your perspective about music. And it had to do with the new generation of classic rock. That, yes, the 70s, pretty much, the mainstay. It's actually the primary of true classic rock, without going back to the 50s and 60s, of course, but the 70s. But you brought up, the 90s, like thinking about Pearl Jam. You think about, all these different types of bands. Maybe you can share your perspective on that and why classic rock should, I believe, yes, it's kind of like the next, generation, is included in it.
Yeah, that's right. So, and that started, the next generation of classic rock is already starting. And I just want to say, by the way, I can't see any of the comments, so I'm not ignoring anybody. But wherever you're watching from, Jerry and I both obviously appreciate it, and glad you love classic rock music as much as we do. But yeah, it is evolving, man. It's, us growing up, yeah, it was Pink Floyd, it was Led Zeppelin, it was Boston, it was Bob Seger, it was Tom Petty. It was all those things, and it still is. But also now, because it's 2018, man, and you think, where's the time gone? And you listen to classic rock stations now, and bands like Pearl Jam, the Scorpions, Motley Crue, even Metallica are considered classic rock in some markets. Enter Sandman is, by Metallica, is on classic rock radio. Yeah. So this new generation, the kids now who are in their early 20s, that's their classic rock. Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, that's their classic rock now. The stuff from the 90s and late 80s has now become more mainstream. So it's interesting to see that shift happen where, I think, you can use terms like classic rock or hard rock or heavy metal, whatever you want to do. At the end of the day, whatever lasts the longest, it was just good. You know what I mean? Like Pearl Jam was grunge in the 90s because you had to give it a name. But yeah. Pearl Jam's just a rock band. That's all they are. They're just a great one, and that's why they're still around. So, right. All those labels kind of fizzle away eventually because if you have longevity, you're just a great rock band.
Exactly. And and after you just said it, you're a month on the bus. You see all the trials and tribulations of like 3 4 years. Can you imagine years in the making, and all these bands touring the way they do, how that's possible.
Well, some of these guys don't even know how to, when they get home, they can't sleep for a week because, there is a rhythm to sleeping on the bus. You usually go to bed when the bus driver starts the bus, and then you wake up when the bus shuts off. That's like your alarm clock because when you hear no noise, you're used to sort of the rumbling of the bus, and that's what lulls you to sleep. Then when you shut the bus off, you're like, whoa, it's time to get up, So when people get home, the bed's soft. It's not shaking a little bit. You know what I mean? You're not taking any turns, and there's no noise. And guys don't know how to sleep when they get home. It takes them a while to readjust back to real life. It's crazy, but that's being a road warrior.
So yourself. So when you're on stage, I've been dying to ask you, like, just when you're on stage, and I totally relate to this kind of like it's you or nothing, So you understand, it's almost like a tennis player, right? Everything revolves around you because you're not relying on teammates. It's you. You're the guy. So when you're on stage, like, what's been the biggest surprise for you when you're on stage? I guess with people, how they react to you, or I often think, I can never do that. And I applaud you because I know you do it and you do it all the time. And I want more people to go see Don Jamieson. And I'm going to share your website. Again, I'm going to show the screen. But maybe you could, share a little bit about your experiences on stage.
I think the biggest surprise is that every night is a surprise. You could do the same exact set 2 nights in a row. And one night it could kill, and the next night, and you might get a laugh in a weird place one night where you didn't expect it, or something that kills every night gets a zero another night out of the blue. So even this working at the same clubs, while I have a certain comfort level in certain clubs where I feel really good on stage and really at home there, and generally have great shows. There's always a crowd waiting to take you down a peg. I mean, and then there's the crowds where you go, oh God, the last time I played here, they were kind of quiet, and then you destroy the room. So I think the biggest surprise is that just be ready to always be surprised. But the thing that I learned early on, again, I like people to know me as the rock and roll comic, but they should also know I can perform in front of anybody. But what I was saying before about Dice, it's not that I'm just going to talk about music and bands and musicians. It's also the attitude. And when I give a performance, I give 100%, whether there's 2 people in the room or 2,000. And I try to, that's a big part of it for me, is that rock and roll attitude. When I get on stage, I puff my chest out and I get going, and I really hammer hard on people, man, because I want people to have a great time. Some comics like to work really slow. I like to work quickly. I like to get people gasping for air if I can really get rocking in a room. And I love that. It's sort of like playing a hit song where people are really excited. I like to have that kind of excitement, even though I'm just one guy with a microphone. I love to have some kind of performance level that's above maybe what other guys do. So. For me, that's what's kept me going, is you never take a show off. The comics, they're doing comedy they've done comedy 6 times, and they're like, I need an agent, I want to headline the Garden, and you're like, oh, you got, there's only a few comics who've ever headlined the Garden, right? But you could headline the Garden in your mind every night if you really want to. So that's sort of how I do it. It's like, all right, every show's the Garden until I get there.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. We were just in a comedy show a couple of weeks ago, and it's got to feel, this sense of accomplishment. To hear the laughter, to hear something that you crafted, you put it on paper, and then there it is live. That's awesome.
Yeah, again, and you're not buying anything if you mail it in. If you see a crowd that's small or whatever, or you make a you can never judge a crowd. That's the thing. You don't know what you're going to get until you get out there. And sometimes comics don't listen to the crowd. I always listen to the crowd to see what's hitting with them and see what they're responding to. And then you can adjust accordingly. I'm not going to let them dictate what I do, but you can also, it's a give and take. If they're not going down a certain road with you, it's like, all right, let me hop off the exit here, try something else, get a cup of coffee and a donut, and then we'll come back. We'll get back on the highway when everybody's ready. So I just love the art of doing it. 2 people paid the same as 2,000. So why short them, anything, they paid no less than anybody else. Now, luckily, it's been a long time since I performed in front of 2 people, but if I have to, I will. And they'll probably even get a better show, because they'll be like, there's nothing to lose here. My word against yours. I've been known to do long shows in front of a few people, because it's like, hey, if everyone's into it, let's just have fun here, and we'll create some good stuff together. And
that's why, guys, right now I want to share with you Don's website, because I want you to go see Don in action. And here's one of my favorite shots. I'm sorry, I'm not showing the right thing here. Hold on. Yeah, there it is. You see, there's your website, right?
Yeah.
There's Don's website, donjamieson.com.
Yep. And
do you want me to give out your Twitter handle, or?
Yeah, that'd be great, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm pretty active on there.
Here's Don's Twitter. It's realdonjamieson.com. And probably, yeah, he says he's really active. Yeah, I mean, he's got 101,000 guys. Go add him and go friend him, direct message him. Was there anything else? I think, Don, man, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else that you wanted to, any other social stuff that I missed?
Oh yeah, I'm right there on the Facebook too, Don Jamieson Official. So
there's my favorite shot. There it is.
Yeah, that's me in college, 1988, man.
In college in 1988.
And the cover of my new album, Communication Breakdown.
That's right. That's right. That's new now.
It's been out about a year, but it's still, it's still funny, I think.
Plus, if you come here to Don's website, there's actually, let's see here, under videos, you have access to your Spotify right here. Grab his Spotify, which I just did earlier. Yeah, there's some cool stuff right here. Is that supposed to be there?
I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff here.
Yeah, and I got some clips on there, that metal show. I got clips of me doing the Beer Money show that I used to host, because obviously,
yeah,
like you and your brother, I'm a huge sports fan.
That's right.
So I'd like to do some more sports stuff in the future as well. But yeah, everything, pretty much. I'm going to have some new clips going up in the next month of some fresh material. So check that out. And yeah, come see me live. There's all my dates. I list them. I'll be on the road all summer, and
Ohio right here. So
I'll be at the Funny Stop, and that's where I recorded my last album, the Funny Stop Comedy Club, which is one of my favorites. Yeah, lots of stuff coming. The dates will be updated pretty soon. I got tour dates for July and August coming up.
Wow,
and
yeah,
go ahead.
You're going all the way to California here for July. It looks like the 4th weekend. Down here, you're in Hermosa, California.
I am?
Yep. If you don't know, yeah, there you go.
I'm going to have to visit my own website.
Make sure, go grab, pick a date here. Go see Don live in person. He is absolutely tremendous. And Don, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with our subscribers here. You guys, thank Don. Just comment below one more time. Thanks, Don, and maybe we can get him again in a few months. He'll probably have a lot more material, a lot more dates coming around the country. Don, thank you, my friend. You are absolutely awesome. Any last words you'd like to part to our awesome subscribers? Thank you for supporting, rock music, because, in the States, it's I wouldn't say it's a dying breed, but it's definitely always a struggle. There's so many ebbs and flows and ups and downs with rock music, and particularly hard rock music. And so the more you could support, the better. A lot of these bands, sure, there's Metallica, there's Guns N' Roses, who are playing big venues and making a lot of money, but 95% of the bands are basically selling T-shirts for a living, so, you're not selling millions of albums anymore. And the only way for them to make money is get on the road and have people buy a T-shirt or obviously, they want you to buy their album, but, go down and support if you can. I know not everybody is lucky to be able to go see a lot of shows like I am, but if you can, get down there and buy new music from these bands, because there's so many bands still making great music, and just show your support. Get out this summer. All your favorite classic rock bands will be on the road, and if you see me at one of the shows, come up and say hi. Awesome. Well, guys, terrific. Look for our next interview in a few days or next week or so. But this was awesome. Don, thank you so much for everything. I love the stories. And like I said, I'm going to keep an open invitation, maybe grab you back in a few months or so. And so, guys, make it a great day.